so-called Putin's brain, Alexander Dugin, there was an assassination attempt on him. Unfortunately, his daughter fell prey to that. What's your take on this incident, and who do you think must be behind this attack? Ukraine, US, etc. In the future, can such incidents escalate to major steps taken by Russia? Right. So, who is Alexander Dugin? He is a historian, philosopher, writer, that sort of person. He's a scholar. He's an intellectual. He has authored books on various topics, including on geopolitics. One of the only books on geopolitics that makes sense, in my opinion. Yeah. So he is an intellectual. He's not a politician. He's not a powerful person. You may have a great following. It doesn't mean you are powerful. Yeah. So he is an influential person. He's a very significant scholar, writer, historian, geopolitical analyst, and so on. But he's not a powerful politician or any such thing. Some people allege that he is the brain behind Putin. Not so. I don't agree with that. Putin is his own man. He doesn't need the blessings or the inputs from somebody to do what he's doing, right? So I disagree that Alexander Dugin is Putin's brain and the brain behind Russia's geopolitical, geostrategic initiatives and all that. Right now, the thing is this: yes, there was an assassination attempt on him. He was supposed to get into a car. There was a bomb in that car. Unfortunately, what happened is that he at the last minute went to another car, and his daughter went into the car that had a bomb, and the car blew up, and his daughter unfortunately died. His daughter was a reasonably young person, late 20s, early 30s, Daria Dugina. I think she was a journalist or something. So yes, the bomb was intended for Alexander Dugin. It ended up killing his daughter. You see, geopolitics is not child's play. It's deadly serious. People, this is what happens. Yeah, it is not child's play. It is a very grown-up matter. It's a matter of life and death. People die, and this is what happened, right? So this is clearly an act of terrorism. When somebody, whoever did this, well, they targeted unarmed civilians, non-combatants, right? When you are targeting people who are not fighters, people who are not soldiers, people who are not part of the military, when you're targeting civilians, that is terrorism. So whoever has done this has indulged in a blatant act of terrorism. Now, the Western media will justify it. They will say that he was evil and his daughter was part of the regime and blah, blah, blah. So it's perfectly justifiable to kill them. The Western media is known to portray outright terrorists as austere religious scholars and so on and so forth. They will justify anything, any kind of bloodshed, any kind of barbarism to in service of the empire. That's what they will do. That's what the Western media is known to do. They will whitewash the worst of crimes as long as those crimes are in the service of their cause. So the truth is, what happened is an act of terrorism. Yeah. So what's my take on this incident? Who is behind this? Well, I don't have any actual information. One can surmise that maybe it's the Ukrainians who are behind this. Now we know who is the puppeteer of Ukraine. It's the US, right? But the Americans will never get their own hands dirty in this. They will never get involved in such acts of terrorism directly. They will, if they do it, we know that they have done this, done things like this in the past. Yeah. Look at the history of the past 50, 60 years. The Americans have been all behind all kinds of regime change operations and coup d'etats, and various dictators. See that track record in South America. It's terrible. So it would not be surprising if overall maybe there is some US hand in that, but they will definitely not be involved directly in this. They will be involved via proxy, if at all. The proxy is obviously, I would expect, somebody in Ukraine, or maybe the Ukrainian government, or some portion of the Ukrainian military, or something like that. Right? So the blame or the suspicion will obviously go towards Ukraine. Now, can such incidents in the future escalate to something major? The intention would be that. See, when you target somebody who is a civilian, but who is very well respected and maybe admired and maybe loved in his nation, and when it ends up killing his daughter, well, the intention is to put the leadership of Russia in a very tight position, that they have to respond to this, right? So the intention, whether it was Alexander Dugin who was killed or whether his daughter was killed, the intention was to provoke Vladimir Putin and put him in a difficult position, that he has to respond in order to placate the people who feel that these people killed our scholar and you did nothing about it. And therefore, by doing that, by putting Mr. Putin in such a difficult position, you may induce him to make some kind of mistake and some miscalculation. So the Ukraine war is proceeding in a slow war format, right? Old-fashioned 20th century warfare. No, it's not blitzkrieg warfare. It's a very slow and steady war that's going on, right? So maybe that's not what the West wants. That's not what the Ukrainians and the Americans want. Maybe they want Mr. Putin to make some harsh and silly and stupid decision that will end up costing him costing him. So overall, I would expect that the intention behind this terrorist act was to put pressure on Mr. Putin and induce him into making some kind of mistake that he would otherwise not have made. And thus far, we are seeing that it's been a few days since this incident happened. There has been no actual response from the Russians, right? So sometimes, if you want to win a war, you have to sometimes swallow some provocations and not respond to provocations designed to induce you into making a mistake. So we have seen no response essentially from the Russians. Maybe they will eventually respond at a time and place of their choosing, right? But there has been no knee-jerk response from the Russian government, from Vladimir Putin, from any such quarters. So if the intention was to provoke the Russian government into making some miscalculation or some mistake, that has not worked.